8 weeks, we're going to be talking about different angles of this word, Christian. Some of you are like, oh man, I know what a Christian is. I'm hoping that some of the angles I bring to this whole word, Christian, will make us think and maybe understand, or maybe change, or maybe just solidify, or maybe you might be like, I don't understand what they're talking about at all. And again, if you have any questions, please send an email or come talk to me. If some of these things shake your understandings of things. So we're talking about today, the whole idea today is, what is Christian recognized as? Like if Christianity were a brand, like any other brand, and I'm going to explain this further in just a minute, but if it were a brand name, what would it look like? Would it be super modern? With clean lines and straight letters? Would it be floral print? Would it appeal to women more? If it were a brand? If you were to market Christianity, who would it appeal to more? I mean, would it look like this image here that you'll see on the screen? Would it look rustic and brown? I mean, if it were a brand, what would it look like? And then what would people recognize? If Christian were a brand, what would they associate with that label? To illustrate this further, I have a couple of pictures I want to show to you, and here's the first one. Here's a label, an image, a branding, if you will, of people who are American citizens. As you see this image on the screen, there are a lot of things that come to mind. Outsiders have experiences with American people. Insiders have experiences with American people. There are good things that people associate with this image, this label, this brand, and there are some bad things that people associate with this label or this branding there. And so what you start to realize as you make a brand is that there is the original intent of the person or the people who started something, a brand or a label or an idea or a mission. And then there are the things that people added on later. For example, here's this one. What's that? Share with me. Come on.
Target.
Bullseye. And Hilo. Target. That's right. Target. Target. Who likes going into Target? Better than Walmart. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, I like it too. All right. And in all reality, it's fun sometimes to go in there because the people talk to you. Some people don't like that. Some people don't like the fact that they talk to you. That might bother some people. And also, you can go out of Target without having to show your receipt to somebody. Because I always put it in my wallet, and then I have to get it back out again. We don't have bags, so I'm like, I have this stuff tucked under my arm, and they want me to get my receipt out. That's a funny picture right there. Target. And so some people have good things that they've associated with Target, some people have bad things. Who knows if the company Target, the brand Target, is the same now as it was originally when it started. The people who started this business, they may have had some idea in mind, and it may have branched off and changed over time. Here's another one here that some of you, at the front of Target, you'll see this. What's this? Starbucks. Yeah, something you may not know about this image is this is a siren, and mythological. A siren is a beautiful voiced creature that cries out and entices everyone. This is a myth, okay? To come in, to come, hear my voice and come. And that part fits with a business, right? You want them to come in. But then the part that blows me away is that the siren would devour the people that came in. And so do the people who created Starbucks mean that? Or did they actually think that through? I don't really know. But anyway, so there's that image. And so some of you are like, I can't stand Starbucks. Some of you are like, I would never pay that much for a cup of coffee. Some of you are like, I enjoy going to Starbucks. I like sitting in a place like that and drinking a cup of coffee where the lights are low and the color schemes and blah, 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 leather chairs. And here's another one. What's that? Canada. Yeah. Maple syrup, hockey. Here's another one, the Apple logo. Okay, this is a company that produces electronics, and I really do appreciate the quality of work that they put out. But see, not everybody thinks that way. Some people associate with this bad things. My good friend Tom Neal, some of you know, can't stand this company. And at the same time, I'm like, I like this company. You know, and the company started off to create this device, and so maybe people from the outside looking in have all sorts of opinions, but people inside the company probably have this design that they really want the outsiders to get, but maybe can't quite get it. So like the opinions of people outside might totally skew what the people who started it might be trying to accomplish. Here's another one. I know this will relate to some of you in the room. Yeah? Say it. Come on, Cole. Come on. All right, here's another one. I've seen this car around a lot. Associated with this car is low gas mileage. I'm sorry, high gas mileage. High gas mileage. Whatever it is. The car can last for a period of time. This is some of the things that are associated with this name, right? Stolen a lot. That's right. Modified a lot. You know, cookie cut. You know, that sort of stuff. Some people love it. Here's one. Some of you will love this. That's an elephant with 3 stars on its head. No, that's the Republican Party. And then here's my favorite. My favorite of all is the donkey. Okay? The Democrat. And so anyway, all of these things are brands. Images that are branded on groups of people or organizations. And they were created, usually, by the group that started them. Usually. Unfortunately, the group that started them has some sort of goal in mind that may not be what outsiders actually perceive of these things. So, for example, there may be some really good, God-fearing, God-loving, Bible-believing Democrats. Maybe. Okay, there might be. There really might be. Stop laughing. Okay, there really might be. And so their original reasons for being a part of this may be so skewed by outside opinions. You know, who knows? And here's one, this is the image that we're using here today for Christians. If Christian was a brand, what would it look like? What was its original design? Just a word, just a label, just a brand. What was the original design? And then, how do people perceive it as they look in from the outside? Today I have 2 goals. One is I want you to just think about if the church is supposed to be labeled something. That's the goal. I want you to just start thinking about it. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm just trying to make you think. And then the second thing, if we're to be labeled something, what should we be labeled as? Okay, if we are to call ourselves something or to try to get the outsiders to see something, what would it be? So first thing I'm going to do is talk about the beginning of the label Christian. And if you've been a part of our church for a while, you've heard me talk about this before. Acts chapter 11, verse 26 tells us where the term, the label, the branding Christian came from. For an entire year, they being the leaders of the early church, met with the church, and then all the believers, the disciples, and they taught considerable numbers, so it was growing and that sort of thing. And the term here, and the disciples were first called Christians at Antioch. Now, as you read the book of Acts, you'll see this, and you can easily kind of just read through this part. But what's incredible about this moment in history, in church history specifically, is that Christians was not a term made up by Christians. It was made up by outsiders. I'm not arguing that we should stop calling ourselves Christians. I don't even think that's relevant at all. I don't think that we need to worry about, well, we're not going to call ourselves Christians anymore and get all caught up, and then I think that would be kind of a waste of time. But I want for us to realize that there's this group of people who follow Jesus, who were labeled something, and it was meant as an insult. It was meant as an insult. Here's a definition I have, and this is, This will cause some of it. It was a title created by outsiders observing a group of people these outsiders observed who saw the common thread among this group as adherence to a person, that person, Jesus, not a belief system or a set of behaviors. Now that last little phrase in there, not a belief system or a set of behaviors, might cause you problems. In fact, it causes me problems at times because Jesus taught us to believe a certain way. Right. And He taught us to behave a certain way. But the reason why I include that is because many people associate their faith in Jesus as simply, I believe a certain way, or I'm behaving a certain way, apart from adhering to the person of Jesus Christ. And so I include both of those, adhering to a person. Here's why people labeled them that. Because there were Christians disciples who would leave their jobs and follow this guy Jesus. And so people on the outside would be like, those guys are nuts. They just dropped everything. They left their families sometimes and followed this guy. And so from the outside looking in, you're like, that is irrational. That is kind of crazy. And there was also other reasons. This group of people so radically changed their lives as they began to follow Jesus that they became kind of a threat to the powers that be, because there's this big group of people who were not adhering to what the government was saying or the church established religion was saying, but they were adhering to what Jesus was saying. And so when Jesus said to do something or be something or behave in a certain way that was contrary to what the church, the state church, and at that time, I'm just going to tell you, it was the Jewish temple was tied into the empire. And so there were certain groups of Jews that were approved by the state, the Roman Empire. And so if anything caused any sort of power upset, the powers that be were going to, those Christians, messing things up for us. And it's not too far off from what some of the media says about us today. When big elections come up or big world events take place. So Christians, a title created by an outsider. I wonder, though, at all, if Jesus wanted us to be so concerned about this issue. Why, Joe, are you even talking about this? I just want to read a couple more verses from the book of Acts. Acts 6, verse 7 talks about disciples. The word of God kept on spreading, and the number of the disciples continued to increase greatly in Jerusalem. And a great many of the priests were becoming obedient to the faith. So the word disciple is used as a label for the believers in Jesus Christ quite more frequently by the insiders than the term Christian. In fact, the term Christian is illustrated even further by people hating them because, I don't know, you may know this or not. In 64 AD, Rome burned. Anyone know that? Anyone heard that before? Yeah, it's just crazy, wild things that happened. Like 60-70% of the city burned. That's why building codes are in existence today. No. All those things we just kidding. But it burned down, and some people were blaming Nero, who was the ruler, the power at me. Okay, and here's what happened. Here's what the historian, this is his quote from his book, Recounting History, he said this: to get rid of the report, referring to Nero, to get rid of the rumor that was spreading about him setting the city on fire, Nero fastened the guilt and inflicted the most exquisite tortures on a class hated. The group of people, the class hated for their abominations, called Christians by the population. So Nero used it as a political opportunity, whether he started the fire or not. He said, the Christians did it. And it's not like this event caused the Christians to be hated. The Christians were already hated. They were an easy group of people to target. The outsiders had this opinion of, it was not a good word. Okay, it was that scum class that messes everything up. That group of people that we don't like to have around because they cause so much turmoil for us. Scripture says this in Acts 9 about disciples. Now in Joppa there was a disciple named Tabitha, which translated in Greek is called Dorcas. This woman was abounding with deeds of kindness and charity, which she continually did. So what we hear here is an example of a description of a disciple. Someone who continually does things. I have 3 questions on the screen that I want us to talk about for just a second. And the first is this: are we Christian? Of course, the answer to that question is yes. But what I want to get at here is, if we're Christians, are we Christians because of who we follow or because of what somebody on the outside says about us? And that second part of the question, who we follow, if we follow Jesus, then yes, we're Christians. But that second part of the question is, are we labeled Christians by outsiders? Brings 2 things. If we're following Jesus so much that the outsiders want to label us something, then by all means do it. But if we're pushing our own agenda in some arrogant, bigotous, mean-spirited sort of way, maybe we should change. Because outsiders will look on at Christians and they'll group us all together. Those that are sincerely following Jesus and those who are arrogantly misrepresenting the whole thing, they'll throw us all in the same basket together. The second question is, are we disciples? Disciple means student, simply, that's it. You can be a student of just about anything. So the answer to this question is no. The answer to this question is, am I a disciple of Jesus? And then you would say, yes. So you can be a disciple of anybody, or of anything, or any philosophy. And so just to clarify, are we disciples of Jesus? And then I want to illustrate this point a little bit further. When I went to college, when I was doing my undergrad degree, I got F's in a few classes because they started at 7 o'clock in the morning. Okay? And at 7 o'clock in the morning, Joe didn't wake up. I wasted money because of that. A discipline issue for me. You see, I was interested in people and spending time with people and doing a lot of things and participating in a lot of activities, and my grades suffered for it. Just so you know, I just finished another master's class. I'm proud of this, so I'm going to tell you, I got 94 in it.
Right.
So I'm excited about that. But see, here's the point of the stories. I was a student on the lists there, right? I was a student on the lists. I would have been considered in the category of student. Yes, I was a student. But was I actually learning? Maybe a little bit. Every once in a while. I always tell people who give C's, it really helps to read the books. In college, it really helps to actually buy the book, It also really helps to go to class. So the image here is this: am I a student? Maybe by label, maybe because I have received and recognized Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. So you fall into that category. But there's a difference between just being in the category and then actually participating and working it out and living it out. The book of James talks all about it, and the book of Ephesians talks about how we live out our relationship with Jesus Christ. And so the difference is, are you saved by grace? Absolutely. But are you a disciple? Learning. I put that verse, Acts 9:36, because it talks about this whole continual thing that's taking place. And look, I know that some of you are older than me, some of you are the same age as me. Look, I'm going to tell you something here. I'm going to boldly say it to you. If you're stuck and you're not growing, God's not going to make change happen in your life for you. He's not going to take the Bible and throw it into your lap. You know what I mean? It's not going to work like some wind blew the window open and the Bible was levitated and it landed in my lap and it opened up to Jeremiah 29, 13, 14, 15, whatever. You know, if that's the way, if you're stuck, if you know that there's something in your world that needs to improve, be a disciple. And I'm not just saying that to you. I have to say that to myself. Then the last question, are we both? The answer is probably yes. The answer is yes, not probably yes. But I still can't get past this whole label thing. You know, if Jesus were to give us a label, it probably wasn't Christian from the outsiders in a negative thing, the word, you know. Those Christians, that wouldn't have been what Jesus would have, that's not what Jesus said. He didn't say, call yourselves Christians, you know. And so I'm not concerned with whether we call ourselves Christians or not. What I want to get us at is if Jesus wanted us to be recognized as something, what would that be? And so here's how I want to conclude. And you've heard me talk about this before. In John chapter 13, we hear these really powerful words in John chapter 13, verse 34. Jesus says, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, even as I have loved you, that you also love one another. He says, by this all men will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. And so, just to get us thinking, there's a lot of labels that have been given to Christians, disciples. Christians, homophobic, bigots, money hungry, judgmental. There's also been other things. Nazarene, Baptist, Pentecostal, Catholic. There's been a lot of labels given to this group of people. And all of those things are really great, but you know what those labels give? They add a belief system and a set of rules. They add those things. And now look, I appreciate the organization of a denomination. I appreciate that. I mean, of course, there's some things I would think would be better. Just like in any organized group, there's things that can be better. But I appreciate it. And in fact, I think that we can learn from those things and the accountability that's involved. But at the bare bones, as we think about what it means to be a disciple, if we're going to be recognized for anything, maybe it should be this. All men will know that you are my, referring to himself, disciples. So all men will know that you are a follower of Jesus if you have love for one another. Simple, right? If only it were that simple. If we're to be recognized for anything, maybe we should be recognized by what our Lord tells us to be recognized by.